Ole Miss hosts Alabama in Week 5 of the 2020 college football season. You know, Lane Kiffin's excited about this one. Let's take a look at the Tide. Despite winning 11 games in 2019, most Alabama fans will tell you it was a disappointment, and you can't blame them. It's natty or bust in Tuscaloosa. And for the first time since 2014, the inception of the college football playoff, Alabama wasn't in it. That's mainly because Alabama's top player on offense and defense were hurt. On offense, quarterback Tua Tagovailoa was banged up throughout the year. The 5th overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft suffered an ankle injury and a hip injury that forced Mac Jones under center for Alabama, and Jones played well in 12 appearances. He started 4 of those and threw for more than 1,500 yards and a total of 14 touchdowns and just 3 interceptions. The downside of that, 2 of those picks were returned for touchdowns in the regular season finale against Auburn, which led to an Auburn victory. But Jones did complete 69% of his passes, which is nice, and he was 3-1 as a starter. Now, despite Jones' success, many Bama fans have their eyes set on true freshman quarterback Bryce Young. Young was a top-ranked dual-threat quarterback in the class of 2020 and the number 2 overall prospect in his class. Young threw for more than 4,500 yards and 58 total touchdowns to go along with more than 300 rushing yards and 10 rushing TDs as a senior in high school. Now, many believed Young would come in and compete with Jones for the starting spot in spring practice, but with the offseason shortened because of COVID-19, Jones seems to have the advantage going into fall camp. Alabama's best player on offense, though, is running back Najee Harris. Harris rushed for more than 1,200 yards and 13 touchdowns a season ago. He also caught for 304 yards and 7 touchdowns on 27 receptions. No wonder he's already getting preseason Heisman buzz. Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy were 2 of the best receivers in the nation a year ago. That's why they were both first-round NFL draft picks. But the Tide's leading receiver from a year ago is back, Devontae Smith, who hauled in 14 touchdowns and more than 1,200 yards last season. Jalen Waddle is also back after a 33-reception, 560 yards, 6 touchdown performance a year ago. And Waddle is also one of the best return men in the SEC. Bama's offensive line is in a great spot coming into the 2020 season. Although the Tide lose tackle Jedrick Wills, 4 of the starting 5 from a year ago are back. Alabama's defense was rather disappointing last season. That's because injuries rocked the Bama front 7. Things should be much better now, though, because linebacker Dylan Moses is healthy again. Moses was supposed to be a top 10 pick in this past NFL draft, but a knee injury in fall camp sidelined Moses. Getting him back is an instant upgrade to the Bama defense. That's how good he is. Moses is part of a position group that should see the biggest improvement in 2020. Bama's linebackers will most likely carry the defense. Sophomore Christian Harris is poised for a breakout season. Shane Lee is another name to look out for. Joshua McMillan, who also missed most of last season, is now a 6th-year senior. And Chris Allen comes back after playing in 13 games a year ago. The Tide also added 3 5-star linebackers in Chris Braswell, Will Anderson, and Drew Sanders, along with a couple more highly ranked prospects in the 2020 recruiting class. Bama's D-line was also affected by injuries in 2019. But if guys like Brian Ray and DJ Dale are healthy, the Tide defense will be much improved. And we can't forget about Christian Barmore and Byron Young, who are both expected to play a bigger role this season. The biggest question on Alabama's defense is the secondary. Safety Xavier McKinney and cornerback Trayvon Diggs are now in the NFL, and Shai Carter and Jared Maiden have exhausted their eligibility. Cornerback Patrick Surtain is back, but he's the only Alabama defensive back who started more than 4 games in his career. The Tide are going to need cornerback Josh Jobe, safety Jordan Battle, Daniel Wright, and DeMarco Helms to step up, and there's a few other names that should get more playing time, but right now, it's hard to tell what this group will look like when the season starts. Lane Kiffin finally gets to face his old boss, Nick Saban. This is a game that's going to have national storylines for that reason. People are going to be tuned in, but at the end of the day, Alabama's going to win this game most likely. Their offense has a lot of talent still. Their defense should be much improved, and I'm going to sound like a broken record at this point, but Ole Miss didn't get spring practice. They have a new coaching staff. Lane Kiffin, you heard in his media availability earlier in the week, already talk about how hard it is for his team. He's going to have to simplify his system and leaving out a lot of options for him to use. it's just going to be really, really tough to play a team like Alabama and expect to win under all of those circumstances. But I will say, by the time Ole Miss plays Alabama, it's going to be at the end of a 3-game stretch for the Rebels, and that stretch includes Auburn and LSU as well. So maybe the experience against good teams early helps the Rebels against the Tide, not to mention Kiffin's deep desire to beat his former employer. So I can see Ole Miss annoying Alabama a little bit in this one, making it a more interesting matchup than it might be otherwise. For the Ole Miss Spirit, I'm Sudu Upadea.